Tansei, I'm Kristanachkate. Welcome to APTN National News. The Confederacy of Treaty 6 First Nations in Alberta have asked the Edmonton Police Service to designate the case of Samuel Bird as a search and recovery. Samuel Bird is 14 years old and has been missing since June 1st. Grand Chief Greg Desjardins met with Bird's family and interim Edmonton Police Chief Warren Dretchell last Tuesday on August 19th. If granted, a search and recovery classification would allow more resources to be used in finding Samuel Bird. Edmonton Police would not confirm to APTN that the case is now designated a search and recovery, only that Bird's disappearance is suspicious. Previously speaking to APTN News, Alana Bird believes something happened to her son and has been searching the rivers in Edmonton and surrounding area. In honor of 150 years since the signing of Treaty 4, Muskiping Sodto Nation in southern Saskatchewan was working to get as many of their members onto their nation all at one time, and it includes youth currently in the child care system. CTV's Mick Fable brings us more on the week-long celebration.
Members of Muskiping Sodto Nation receiving a special homecoming. A group of youth who were taken into the child welfare system, disconnected from their home nation, back home, brought together to meet family and community.
This is where you come from. Whether you were raised on reserve, raised in the nation, you can always learn your history. You can always learn your culture. You can always learn who your people are. And we wanted to do that as leadership, to know, let our people know this is where you come from.
Muskiping has been working to make this moment possible, coordinating trips from as far as BC for members to make it to the nation's first annual powwow. Barbara Feiss has raised her son since he was 6 weeks old. She says over the years they tried to get him connected to his home community, eventually starting correspondence. The meeting has been an emotional and overwhelming experience.
He's a fantastic kid, and I love it because he's now starting to meet family and making friends and meeting cousins. And that's, you can't put money on that.
The special ceremony welcoming members back coincides with the nation's week-long event called Chikuk Days, honoring 150 years the nation signed on to Treaty 4 territory. The main event, a 3-day powwow inside of a brand new event arbor made of wood and steel, a place to gather and celebrate for years to come.
This year is only the start, it's only the beginning, and we're hoping to make sure that everybody that belongs to Muskiping, whether they live in BC, Japan, wherever they are, that they know this is where their home is, this is where they belong.
Chikuk Days are to conclude this weekend. Mick Fable, CTV News, Muskiping Sodto Nation.
A residential school totem pole in Winnipeg's Assiniboine Park was suddenly damaged after it was struck by lightning during a severe thunderstorm on Wednesday night. The Southern Chiefs organization raised the pole almost 3 years ago on September 30th, the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. The totem pole was a gift to the SCO, and the plan was to move it to the former Hudson's Bay building in downtown Winnipeg once their multi-million-dollar housing and community center project is done. The pole stands 21 meters tall. It was made from a massive West Coast tree, and it was designed by Charles Joseph himself, a survivor of the residential school in Alert Bay, BC. Assiniboine Park has for now fenced off the totem pole as a precaution. In a statement to APTN News, SCO Grand Chief Jerry Daniels says they are saddened by the news, and they added, "The powerful and towering tribute to the children who were stolen from their families and sent to residential school appears to have been struck by lightning. The SCO is working closely with Assiniboine Park to coordinate an assessment of the damage and structural integrity of the totem pole. The SCO is also reaching out to the artist on what to do next." An urban reserve in Winnipeg is taking its first critical step with the federal government's help. The large, mostly empty space formerly known as Kapyong Barracks will move into its design phase thanks to investment from Indigenous Services Canada. APTN's Sav Jonza has more.
The largest multi-use project in Winnipeg's modern history is gaining momentum.
What we're doing here has never been seen before or has been experienced across Canada. A 109-acre property that is right in the middle of the most affluent community in Winnipeg.
Still in its early stages, the Nawe-Odina Urban Reserve is taking its first critical step forward, thanks to help from the Government of Canada. The 109-acre swath of land on what used to be an army base will receive almost $800,000 in additional money from Indigenous services. The money will help cover 45% of the costs related to infrastructure design for roads, lighting, sewer systems, and plumbing for some sections of the property.
Located in the single largest Indigenous economic zone in Canada, it is a monumental step forward to integrating Indigenous culture and business into Winnipeg's urban fabric and providing opportunities for future generations.
ISC Minister Negon says the investment aligns with Canada's plan to address the national housing crisis. Nearly 5,000 housing units will be built on the site along with businesses and other developments.
Housing, commercial development, education, health, and community space are critical for First Nations. Nawe-Odina stands as one of the largest and most ambitious First Nations-led economic development projects in Canadian history.
Nawe-Odina is being developed by the Treaty 1 Development Corporation, a partnership of 7 First Nations. The project began in 2019 and has received a total of $5.5 million in funding from Canada so far. Broken Head Ojibwe Nation Chief Gordon Blue Sky says it is important the project has city, provincial, and federal support to succeed.
I think it's important for all levels of government to see this urban economic First Nation zone being successful, because it just allows to show what working together looks like.
A gas station and convenience store opened on the property this June. It may take more than a decade to finish the project in full. Sav Jonza, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Time for a quick break, and when we come back, we'll hear from this week's Truth in Politics panel with Dennis Ward. Stay tuned. Welcome back. As we reported earlier this week, some First Nation leaders in southern Manitoba are calling for a summit on the leadership of their Grand Chief. This is the second time a non-confidence vote has been requested during Jerry Daniels' leadership at the Southern Chiefs organization. Other Indigenous political organizations and governments have also been in the news this week, dealing with questions around leadership. That's our topic for this week's Truth in Politics panel with our Dennis Ward. Jennifer Leywitz is the CEO of Pasquale Strategies, and Negon Sinclair is a columnist with the Winnipeg Free Press.
Jennifer, Negon, great as always to see you. Jennifer, we'll start with you, and it's unclear if a Chiefs in Summit non-confidence vote will happen at the Southern Chiefs organization, as the executive is working to set up a sit-down, but it appears on the surface to be about the MOU signed with the Manitoba Métis Federation. Your thoughts on this?
Well, this is the second time we're hearing about an issue with Grand Chief. I'm sure it goes much deeper than just the MOU that's signed. I was reading the CBC article right before we filmed this panel because they had another updated article on it, and it was talking also about the alleged allegations that happened with the disturbance back in December during AFN week in Ottawa. And, I think this is a part of a much larger picture where a lot of the grassroots representatives from our nations, our rights holders and their advocates are starting to get to the point where they're getting really frustrated with leadership. And I think this is just another sign of that. I read Derek Nepenak's comments this morning talking about how they have to protect the treaty rights and the rights holders. And if they continue to make decisions, signing MOUs with the Manitoba Métis Federation and not talking to anybody about it, and they're finding out over Facebook, yeah, I can see why some of our grassroots representation are starting to lose that confidence, and whether or not the non-confidence actually happens is a completely different story.
Negon, you wrote about this in your latest column, this latest test of leadership for Southern Chiefs organization Grand Chief Jerry Daniels. You referred to him as a political cat. Your take on this?
Yeah, I was saying that he has 9 lives. If you had asked many people, I think many people would have thought that he would have been removed after the incident in Ottawa. And then there's some allegations of some financial issues. There's allegations of staff removals. There's allegations of say, things involving certain business dealings. I listed them all off in my piece. When you begin to add all of those up, you certainly start to sense that there is a movement to resist, or at least somehow question the motives of the Grand Chief. The reason that I think this is important is because the Grand Chief doesn't represent rights holders. The Grand Chief represents chiefs and is a spokesperson. So the Southern Chiefs organization doesn't hold any rights for anything. What they do is they take direction from the chiefs. And as Jennifer's pointed out, that you can't just simply make a decision on your own without consulting the chiefs. I was on a phone call with 2 different chiefs yesterday, both from the Southern Chiefs organization independently. And both of them said, this came out of nowhere, this agreement with the Manitoba Métis Federation. I thought it was a good idea when I thought that the Grand Chief had been consulting his constituency. Now I wonder is how many times has the Grand Chief moved without talking to any other chiefs, or maybe a very small select group of chiefs. The fact is that this Grand Chief represents nearly 3 dozen communities. And you have to get the majority of them on board to be able to do anything. And so if there's chiefs that say, I didn't even know he was going to do anything, it's certainly suspicious. And I think I'm not going to call that this is going to be the end of Grand Chief Jerry Daniels, because I would have thought that the last incident would have done it, but I guess we'll see. There's going to be a meeting in about a month where there will be a non-confidence motion, and there is much discussion in a meeting of chiefs this weekend. So we'll see.
Jennifer, SCO, far from the only political organization or government-facing leadership issues. Just this week, Métis Nation British Columbia has suspended its president pending an investigation. The same thing happened with the previous MNBC president. Not to mention what's going on with the Métis Nation Saskatchewan, Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations, an inability to hold an election for the Grand Chief for the Mohawk Council of Kanesatake. Is it a tough time to be a leader right now?
I wouldn't say that it's a tough time in terms of, it's tough for them because they're under all of this scrutiny. I think the scrutiny is warranted, and I think it should be happening. I think it's a tough time for any leader given the issues that we're seeing on the ground that continue to seem to get worse: addictions, mental health, homelessness, all of those things. Something that the Métis Nation actually declared a state of emergency on today. But it is tough in the sense where it's going to be a very, very hard period of time in terms of needing to be selfless and needing to be strong and, put all of your ego and every other issue aside, because we need leadership right now. It is important to know, to talk about the difference between a self-government, which the Métis are supposed to be a self-government, and a group like the FSIN that are essentially a lobbying organization, because we're seeing it almost trickle down through all of these different bodies. They're happening within the bodies that we call self-governments. They're happening within these political organizations that were quite literally structured to be the voice of leadership, especially FSIN and the SCO. But I think it's time that we start, as people, just holding these leaders more accountable. I'm sorry, I have no more apologies, especially we're in a time like this. You're either ready to be a leader or you're not. And I know there'll be some people that say, oh, that's negative or it's toxic to be holding these people accountable. But I know for sure I won't be one of the ones backing down. And I think our people need to come more to the table and start using our voices.
Negon, same question to you. Is this a difficult time to be an Indigenous leader right now?
Reflecting back on the phone calls I had yesterday with two different independent chiefs, they both said, I don't have time for this crap. Like, I don't have time for struggling through the drama of organizations that are supposed to lobby and represent chiefs. And what I have time for, or what takes up most of my time, are emergency situations in communities. Boil water advisory, youth suicide epidemics, this massive issue of child welfare, never mind the billions of dollars that are looking to be able to fix or deal or compensate. That is a national lobbying issue of bringing the federal government back to the table to talk about the treatment of children and the driving of them into the child welfare system. Chiefs should be focusing on that, not on one or more Grand Chiefs' personal issues or failure to follow the constitution of their own organizations, or, and we're not just talking about one Chiefs organization. We're talking about many different things that are happening over long periods of time. Now, that being said, I think chiefs are also put into, and Grand Chiefs are put into, very difficult circumstances because they're under-resourced. They're put into very difficult positions by Canada, being expected to act very quickly when our governments are just simply not set up to move quickly. And then on top of that, when you have an emergency situation the chiefs are dealing with, and then you add in pipelines and they have to deal with that, what are you going to choose? And then on top of that, a bunch of money that's all now coming towards the areas of chiefs. I've never met a chief that didn't get in the business of being a chief for the right reasons. I've never met that one. I've never met a chief that's evil. But I have met chiefs that have been coerced by the system, that have been burnt out. And I've met chiefs that have been allured by several vices by the job.
All right. We're going to leave it there and talk about the recently unveiled cost to search a Winnipeg area landfill over on the podcast. Jen, Negon, thanks to you both.
Yeah, Milesh.
We now want to tell you about this week's 3 web poll questions. Our first question is, should artificial intelligence be used as part of Indigenous language revitalization? The options are yes, no, or unsure. Our next question is, do you think Northern First Nations should be more involved in Arctic security? Please answer yes, no, or unsure. And lastly, we're asking, have you ever experienced racial profiling while shopping at a store? And you can vote yes or no. Go to our website at aptnnews.ca/poll to have your say. Time for one last break. When we come back, we check in with Nouvelle Nationale.
Willalen for staying with us. St. John 7, Charlottetown 17 and sunny. Anujiwak rain and 7, the Grand River 7 and partly cloudy. Quebec City 24, Gaspé 19 and sunny there. Peterborough 23, Toronto 28. Sudbury 22, Thunder Bay 17 and sunny. Puckedawagan 16, Thompson 17 and sun. Sun's out in Gimli at 20, Princess Harbour 15. North Battleford 20, Yorkton partly cloudy and 18. Buffalo Narrows 13, La Ronge 14. Rain and high level at 17, Fort Chipewyan 14 and sunny. 30 in Medicine Hat, Edmonton 27. Vancouver 19, Bella Coola 10. Sandspit 13, Prince Rupert 16 and rain. Old Crow 9, Rock River 10. Showers in Fort Simpson at 12, Wati 17. Tuktoyaktuk 5, Pawatuck 10 and rain. 13 in Chesterfield, Whale Cove 10. And Arctic Bay 8, Resolute sunny and 5. The University of Manitoba's Max Rady College of Medicine recently had the class of 2029's White Coat ceremony, where first-year students read the Physician's Pledge and received their white coats. This year, the university had almost a dozen Indigenous students say their pledge and receive their coats. Julia Ross spoke with the excited medical students.
The University of Manitoba had their white coat ceremony on Wednesday, where students received their coats symbolizing the start of their medical profession journey.
Jessie McGregor.
Jessie McGregor is from Mississippiwaystic Cree Nation and graduated high school in Norway House Cree Nation in Manitoba. He receives his white coat as a part of the class of 2029 for the University of Manitoba's Max Rady College of Medicine.
I'm pretty ecstatic. This has been a long time coming. I left home when I was 17 years old up north, and it's been 8 years since that time, and my journey's been quite a windy road, and now it's finally here.
McGregor says that he wants to pursue medicine to help communities up north.
And if the stars align, I'd like to give back to the north, essentially. I'm originally from Mississippiwaystic Cree Nation, or Grand Rapids, and I also have really close ties to Kiniseo CP Cree Nation, or Norway House, Manitoba. I graduated high school in Norway House, or HBO IERC, and that community just opened up a brand new hospital, so I would love to work there one day.
The class of 2029 is the biggest class in the history of the university, with 136 receiving their white coats.
It's truly an honor to be welcoming you this year. You comprise our largest incoming medical school class in history with 136 students.
Hallie Cochran also received her white coat at the ceremony.
My sister is the first doctor from our reserve. I'm from Fisher River Cree Nation, so I'm following in her footsteps, and my plan is to become a family doctor and then work on reserves in Canada.
She says that she plans to create a safe space for Indigenous people to be seen by an Indigenous doctor with her practice.
Most of my relatives have never been treated by an Indigenous doctor, and I haven't. And I think that's really something that I want to bring to my practice and make a safe space for my relatives and people like me.
The class of 2029 has a total of 11 Indigenous students beginning their journey into the medical profession. Julia Ross, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Nouvelle Nationale host Kim Sullivan joins us now with what to expect in tonight's broadcast. Hey, Kim.
Hi, Creason. Tensions peaked in Quebec this week with the proposed Bill 97 on forestry. We sent our cameraman into the thick of it, 7 hours north of Montreal in Winmota. That's like going to Thompson, Manitoba, or Prince George, Vancouver. So a tad more than a day trip, but the guardians of the land there were called in by a family trying to protect their ancestral territory, and tensions were growing between them and forestry workers. So many leaders had to call for calm, and our cameraman was there for that.
And Kim, the government's finally sat with the chiefs though, right?
Yes, finally. And one thing is for sure, everyone agrees that there's need to be changes done to this proposed bill. Stéphanie Desev, our new reporter, dives into what came out of those meetings. Meetings do continue all the way through to next week as well. So we have all that in tonight's show.
Kim, you're also sharing some beautiful reports out of New Brunswick and Manitoba that we have aired here on the English side.
Yes, we're only a weekly show, Creason, so we often see some great stories on your show happening across our beautiful country, and we don't have the luxury of time to always translate them and air them in our 30-minute weekly French broadcast. However, tonight we chose to share a great report Angel Moore did on birch bark canoes, as well as one Sierra did about that Grandfather Rock in St. Boniface. We know that there's French speakers all across the country, so we want them to feel heard as well.
And Kim, let's not forget our French viewers from across Canada can send you story ideas too, hey?
Of course, we love hearing from everybody. Nouvelle with an S at aptn.ca if you want to reach us, and we'll be more than happy to chit chat with you.
All right, Kim, see you tonight at 6:30 Eastern, right after the national news with Dennis.
Yes, see you tonight.
And that's your daytime newscast. Dennis Ward is back with your evening newscast in a few hours. Please join us then. From all of us at APTN National News in downtown Winnipeg, Kwana, Hai Hai Miigwech Masicho. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again next day.